So today I want to talk about automation in the 3D space because I think there's a ton of really bad information that's out there. One of the places that customers talk to us about all the time is, can you automatically convert images into 3D assets? And there are a number of companies out there that are claiming to do exactly that. And while they might be doing some of that, the reality is most of the process is still manual. There are AI or ML algorithms that are going to take your images, and by the way, the quality of your images that are input is very important, and then they're going to create a 3D model and they're automatically going to spit it out to you. But the reality is, if that was true, you'd be able to see that happen in minutes. But instead what happens is you'll send them a list, they'll come back with some 3D assets, and what's happening in between there, maybe there's some technology that's automatically creating the mesh or something like that that's saving some time. But what's actually happening in between is there's an army of 3D artists that is manually touching up those assets or working with those assets. And that's a big problem because you're eating that cost. Automation that isn't actually automated has a cost to brands, because what happens is it's going to stop you when you want to go and scale. When you want to go and scale, you see that it's successful, you're benefiting from selling in 3D or whatever your use case is around there, and you're like, great, let's take this to the next level. It's manual work. It's employees that need to be hired at this other company in order to scale up the volume of work for you, and that is expensive. And you are finding that in the cost that you're paying per model. Oftentimes when companies come to me and say, this is what we're paying for 3D asset creation, it's the same as if you had hired a company directly in India or some other country where it's got a lower cost of labor. There is no automation benefit there. You're not seeing the savings of automation that you normally see when it's introduced. So I think that's something that people really need to take a hard look at. The other area where we're seeing a lot of misinformation is around optimization. That's obviously something we do. We talk about it all the time. We have automatic optimization, and the reality is you can see it for yourself. You upload an asset, and within a couple minutes, you're gonna have the optimized version of that ready to download. There is no manual intervention. There is no one behind the scenes. What companies are claiming to have as optimization, and this is really difficult if you are not a 3D expert or you don't know really much about the space, they're claiming to have optimization, and what's happening is either it's 3D artists, again, touching things up in the background, or it's tools that you would have within a normal 3D program like Blender, where you're able to decimate mesh or resize textures or something like that. There isn't any intelligence to it, but they get to check the box of optimization. And I think that's a big problem because it's basically false advertising, and there's a cost to you as a brand who is believing in those promises and realizing you're not actually going to be able to scale what you want to scale. And it especially happens when you start out with 50 or 100 models and then you're trying to go into the thousands. That's when that process is going to break and become really problematic. So my advice to anyone who's looking to get into 3D or is looking to scale up processes for distributing 3D and go to market is to ask difficult questions. Bring someone technical from your team who's really going to probe them and say, what is the process? When you say optimization, what does that mean? When assets are getting created, why does it take us 5 days to get an asset back? Figure out what the issue is. And I'm not saying that these people that are creating 3D assets using AI or ML, that it's bad. They honestly offer, like I said, they offer the same price point that you might be able to get if you were to go direct. But you need to understand that the automation isn't there yet. And it's essentially a veneer of technology over a very, very manual process. So it's something to think about.